Raise your
Closing
glasses,
parenthesis
boys.
colon. Before you judge a man by his wealth or a
finest
woman by her
Christmas this side of the
silence, wait until
Rockies.
you hear what happened in one forgotten ranch on a freezing Christmas night, when a desperate whisper, "I ain't got nowhere to go, sir, but I can cook," changed everything, exposed buried secrets, and turned strangers into something nobody in that town could ever explain again. And if you love emotional, twist-filled stories like this, make sure you subscribe, because the next story might be the one you never forget. On the outskirts of a dying western town where the wind howled like it carried the voices of the past, there stood a massive but lonely ranch owned by a man named Caleb Mercer, a wealthy rancher known for his hard work, colder heart, and reputation for trusting no one after years of betrayal that had stripped him of both love and faith in people. And as Christmas approached that year, snow blanketed the land like a quiet warning of something about to change, while Caleb sat alone in his oversized wooden house, staring at a dinner table set for no one, when suddenly a faint knock echoed through the heavy front door, a sound so soft he almost ignored it until it came again, weaker but desperate, and when he opened the door he found a woman standing there barely surviving the cold, her clothes torn and dusty, her face pale but beautiful in a tired, broken way, and beside her stood a small boy no older than 7 clutching her hand as if the world itself might steal him away. And before Caleb could speak she lowered her eyes and whispered, "I ain't got nowhere to go, sir, but I can cook," and something in her voice, something raw and unguarded, stopped him from shutting the door like he normally would, because he had turned away travelers before, had learned the hard way not to trust strangers, but this was Christmas Eve, and the storm outside was merciless, so against his better judgment he let them in just for one night, telling himself it meant nothing, just shelter from the cold, nothing more. But fate had already stepped inside his house with them, and the woman introduced herself as Eliza Carter, a widow with no home left after losing everything in a fire that had taken her husband, her land, and everything she once knew, while her son Tommy stayed silent, watching Caleb with cautious eyes that seemed far too old for his age. And Eliza immediately offered to cook something, insisting she didn't want charity, only work for food, and though Caleb refused at first, something about the smell of desperation mixed with dignity in her voice made him finally nod toward the kitchen, not realizing that simple decision would unravel every wall he had built around his life, because within an hour the house that had felt like a tomb for years was filled with warmth again, the sound of cooking, the smell of real food, and even Tommy's faint laughter when Eliza told him stories while working, and Caleb, standing silently in the doorway, found himself watching her not as a stranger anymore but as something he had forgotten existed, life, and for the first time in years, something inside him shifted. But that night wasn't just about survival or kindness, because when Eliza rolled up her sleeves, Caleb noticed something strange on her wrist, a faded mark shaped like a brand symbol he had seen before, one tied to a powerful land dispute from years ago, a secret buried deep in the town's history, and when he asked about it she quickly covered it, saying it was nothing, just an old injury, but the way her eyes avoided his told him otherwise, and that was the first crack in the mystery, because the next morning when the storm cleared slightly and Caleb went to check his cattle, he discovered tracks leading not only into his ranch but toward the old locked storage barn he had sworn no one had entered in years, a barn containing records, deeds, and something far more valuable than land, proof of ownership fraud that could destroy powerful families in the region. And suddenly Eliza's arrival didn't feel like coincidence anymore, especially when he found Tommy standing near that barn door holding a rusted key he should never have had access to. And when Caleb confronted Eliza, she didn't deny everything at first. Instead she said quietly that she never meant to come here, that she had been running from people who wanted what she carried. Documents proving that Caleb's closest business partner had stolen land from multiple families, including hers, and that the ranch was next on the list, and Caleb felt the ground shift beneath him because betrayal had already shaped his past, but now it was standing in his kitchen cooking dinner for him in his loneliness, and just as he demanded full truth, the lights in the house went out. Not from storm damage but sabotage, and outside, figures on horseback surrounded the ranch in silence, men sent not to negotiate but to erase evidence, and Eliza suddenly revealed she had not come to hide. She had come because this ranch was the last safe place where the stolen documents could be protected, and she hadn't expected to find a man like Caleb who would open the door instead of closing it, And in that moment Caleb had to make a choice between turning her in and saving himself or standing with her against men who would burn everything down. And what shocked him most was not the danger outside but the realization that for the first time in years he didn't want to be alone again. So he grabbed his rifle and told her to lock Tommy upstairs. And what followed was a night of tension and silence as shadows moved outside the windows and old sins came knocking on his land. But the twist no one saw coming was that Eliza wasn't just a widow running from danger. She had once been part of the very system that created it, a clerk forced to process illegal land transfers before she escaped with evidence, and the man leading the attack outside was someone she once trusted, her former employer who believed she had died in the fire, and now wanted the documents erased forever. And when the final confrontation came at dawn, Caleb stood between the burning barn and Eliza, realizing that everything he thought he owned, his land, his wealth, his isolation, meant nothing compared to the decision in front of him, because the attackers offered him a deal: hand her over and keep everything, or lose it all. And in that final moment Eliza whispered something that shattered him completely, saying she never planned to stay, only to survive long enough for Tommy to have a future. But Caleb looked at the boy hiding behind the stairs, then at the woman who had brought life back into his empty house, and for the first time in years he chose people over property, firing a warning shot that sent the attackers retreating into the snow. And when it was over, silence returned to the ranch, but nothing was the same anymore, because the truth had been exposed. Corrupt men were eventually arrested, the stolen land cases reopened, and Caleb found himself no longer living like a ghost in his own home, while Eliza prepared to leave once the danger passed, believing she had already taken too much from him. But Caleb stopped her at the door on another quiet Christmas morning, telling her that for years he had everything money could buy and nothing it could not, and that maybe the real twist wasn't the criminals or the secrets or even the storm, but the fact that a stranger had walked into his house asking for nothing but a chance to cook, and ended up giving him a reason to live again. And Tommy, smiling for the first time, asked if they could stay just until the snow melted, and Caleb looked at Eliza, waiting for her answer, while outside the ranch the winter sun finally broke through the clouds, as if the world itself had been holding its breath for this exact moment.